If you could make your ways to your seats, we'll begin in about 2 minutes.
Random, I don't know what the big deal about it was. But hey, did we ever, the orange gosh thing, did we just group that in with something?
Lumped it. Because it wasn't, when it's just an increase in deep.
How are you?
Everybody, what do you want to start a pile? We're just great. Can I ask you to plug me in?
No? I didn't even read the story. I just saw it in the
Last time. That's right. How we doing?
Executive Director Radu, would you please read the roll?
I should know her. She's a friend.
Okay.
But I don't. Yes. I mean, I know her, but I should know what her name is.
Regent Bradley? Regent Bradley? Regent Delgado? Regent Evers? Regent Barrow? Regent Grebe? Regent Grebe? Regent Hall? Regent Higgins?
Here.
Regent Klein? Regent Langness?
Here.
Regent Manydeeds?
Here.
Regent Milner?
Here.
Regent Mueller? Regent Peterson? Regent Stile? Regent Tyler?
Here.
Regent Whitburn?
Here.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Before we get started, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Chancellor Mark Mone and his team for their warm hospitality and most recently for their delicious lunch. Our annual visit to UW-Milwaukee also includes new, exciting ideas and activities at the campus. We look forward to hearing and seeing more about those developments in the next day or so. June, it seems, is a time for the changing of the guard. At this meeting, we'll be saying farewell to several of our colleagues on the board, including Regents Chuck Pruitt, Jose Vasquez, and Nick Harsey. Let me say right now, we commend, appreciate, and thank them for their service. But more of that to come a bit later. Change can also be exciting, and we are pleased to officially welcome 3 new regents to our table. Lisa Erickson of Osceola, Tracy Klein of Brookfield, and Brian Stile of Janesville. Let me tell you, these regents have gotten off to a flying start. This is actually not their first meeting to attend to, or even their second, but it's their third. Even before getting officially on the clock, they went to meetings because they chose to attend them in order to get up to speed on the very important issues that are before us. That in itself tells you something about them, but I'm going to tell you a bit more about each one of our new colleagues. First of all, Lisa Erickson joins our board as the non-traditional student representative. After a 26-year hiatus, Lisa recently decided to return to college and finish her degree in journalism with a minor in food science. She attends UW River Falls. Her career spans 25 years in health, wellness, and food. She currently is a writer and weekly food columnist for several newspapers and specialty magazines in western Wisconsin and Minnesota. She also hosts a weekly radio public affairs food show on WRFW, part of Wisconsin Public Radio. Previously, Lisa owned Wild Chow Catering and hosted the cooking segment of Ron Sherrard's weekly television program, Minnesota Bound. Lisa has been active in her local community, health and wellness initiative, and has been a member of and ambassador for the Osceola and St. Croix Falls Chambers of Commerce. She has served as a volunteer lay pregnancy crisis counselor at Tri-County Life Care Center, TLC, options for several years. Lisa and her husband Mark have 4 children. Lisa, welcome. And would you like to share a few words with us?
I just want to say thank you for that great introduction, and I'm just so happy to be here. I waited a long time to finish my education, had many years to think about it and consider how important it is, and to be part of the Board of Regents, for me at this stage in my life is really a pinnacle and an honor to be part of change and seeing where education can lead not only students but also our state. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're very pleased to have someone represent us from the northern section of our state. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
Mark Tyler is particularly happy about that. All right, our next new regent is Tracy Klein, and as you might have noticed, Tracy had a minor mishap about a week ago, and she's here. Not only is this her 3rd meeting, but she is here with a little help from her scooter. Tracy Klein has served as general counsel to acute care hospitals, multi-provider health care systems, multi-specialty clinics, and managed care companies and health insurance companies for more than 30 years. She has experience in regional and national transactions involving health care providers and health insurance companies. She is a shareholder in Reinhardt Borner Van Duren SC and is chair of Reinhardt's healthcare practice. Tracy is also board chair of Milwaukee Film and a member of the Greater Milwaukee Committee. She serves as a member of the Board of Visitors for the UW-Madison Political Science Department from 2010 to April of 2016, and is also a past member of the advisory board for the College of Health Sciences at UW-Milwaukee. Tracy graduated from UW-Madison in 1980 with a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science and received her law degree from Marquette University in 1984. Tracy, we look forward to working with you, and would you like to share a few remarks?
Thank you, Chairman Milner. And I would just like to thank fellow Regents, Chairman Milner, President Cross, the UW staff, and all the chancellors. You've been most welcoming, and I thank you very kindly for all your efforts to answer questions and get me acclimated. And as soon as I'm more mobile, I really look forward to being able to tour the campuses and really understand better all the different institutions. As Chairman Milner said, I'm a graduate of University of Wisconsin-Madison 1980, political science and all that means. You know, I look back on that and I realize how extraordinarily lucky I was to be able to go to the UW. For me, it was like a portal of the universe had been opened up to me. I grew up in rural Waukesha County. And it was just the most fabulous experience. As I've gotten older and been able to go and see different schools with my kids when they were doing the college visits, I realized how special it is and how special the UW is. We provide an affordable, accessible education to so many people in this state. I count 16 family members who've attended all of the institutions in the UW system, everywhere from Stevens Point, La Crosse, Madison, Whitewater, Waukesha, UWM, and University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. And I understand one fundamental thing, which is it's how people get educated in this state. And it is an extremely fine institution. And so I bring to this job a sense of huge fiduciary responsibility on the part of the people of Wisconsin to make sure that we do all we can do to be good stewards of the resource, but also provide oversight, but also propel the mission, because it is an absolutely fabulous story. I am so forward to working with all of you, and I appreciate being a part of this great group.
We appreciate having you, Tracy. Thank you. And third, but certainly not final regent that we're welcoming today is Brian Stile. Brian is a corporate counsel for Regal Beloit Corporation, which is a leading manufacturer of motors and motion control products, with annual sales of over $3.5 billion and facilities across Wisconsin and the globe. Prior to joining Regal, Brian worked as an attorney at a large international law firm in Chicago and previously served as an aide to Congressman Paul Ryan in Washington, D.C. He is active with numerous charities in Janesville and Beloit, including serving as chair of the Janesville Community Fund Advisory Board. Brian earned his Bachelor of Science degree from the McDowell School of Business at Georgetown University and earned his law degree from the University of Wisconsin Law School. Welcome aboard. Brian, would you like to share a few words?
Thank you, President Milner. I look forward to working with you and our fellow regents to further the mission of the UW system. As a graduate of the University of Wisconsin, I can attest firsthand to the great benefit it provides to our state. And I look forward to working with you and our colleagues here as a steward of the system, which I believe is one of the greatest resources in the state of Wisconsin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we want to welcome aboard to all three of you. I know I speak for my colleagues in saying we look forward to working with each and every one of you and getting to know you better during the time ahead. Looking at our agenda today, it would appear that we're breaking you in very gently, or, well, perhaps not. We'll see. We'll see. All right. I believe President Cross also has some farewells and introductions. President Cross?
Good afternoon. I would like to recognize and thank Dr. Faith Hinsrud, who is stepping down from her position as Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs at UW-Superior. Is Faith hiding from me? She will be accepting the presidency at Bemidji State University and Northwest Technical College in Bemidji, Minnesota, as of July 1. Faith provided more than 20 years of dedicated service to UW-Superior. She helped to lead UW-Superior's accreditation with the HLC, the Higher Learning Commission, the streamlining of learning goals, the new strategic planning and campus master planning processes, and the recovery from the flood we're all aware of back in 2012. I'm familiar with Bemidji, having lived there for a while, so I hope you take lots of blankets, Faith, wherever she is. Congratulations, Faith. On a related note, yes, let's do that. On a related note, I would like to welcome Dr. Jacqueline Weisenberger, recently named the interim provost and vice chancellor for academic affairs at UW-Superior. She will start in her new role on July 1st. I would also like to recognize Elizabeth Troop, who was recently named the acting provost and vice chancellor for academic affairs at UW-Platteville. Liz, who has served as dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Education since 2012, will begin her new role on July 1st. Elizabeth succeeds Dr. Mitty Den Herter, who led academic affairs at Platteville since 2010. Mitty's dedication as an administrative leader served as a building block in the foundation of the university's future, and her contributions are greatly appreciated. I'm pleased to report that Mitty will continue to serve the UW-Platteville community as a tenured faculty member in the Department of Performing and Visual Arts within the College of Liberal Arts and Education. I just received a note. It came on expensive transmittal paper. I just received the note that Faye Perkins, a faculty member in the Department of Health and Human Performance, has been named the interim provost just this morning at UW River Falls. So we'd like to congratulate her as well. I would like to extend our best wishes to Fernando Delgado, the Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs at UW River Falls. After serving in this important role for 7 years, Fernando has accepted a new position as Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs at the University of Minnesota, Duluth. His last day at UW-RF is June 30th. Fernando played a critical role in the development and approval of several new academic programs at River Falls, including data science, neuroscience, and ag engineering, as a part of the Northwest Wisconsin Engineering Consortium. And for that, Fernando, we are appreciative. So, Fernando, thank you. We extend our best wishes to you as well. Finally, you may have heard that Jim Villa, our VP for University Relations within System Administration, recently decided to return to the world of real estate. He was appointed Chief Executive Officer of NAIOP, Wisconsin. This is our commercial real estate development association. Over the past 2 years, Jim helped to strengthen our relationships with the state legislature while building new partnerships with leaders and stakeholders throughout Wisconsin, and we thank Jim for his service and wish him well. In my office, Jessica Tormey has agreed to serve as interim vice president for university relations. For those of you who know her, you know she's had 20 years of public policy experience serving in the legislature, formerly as a lobbyist with the system, as an assistant vice chancellor at colleges and extension, and as chief of staff for the past couple of years. I believe Jess can help us bridge this gap and understand our priorities while we develop our advocacy and communications, strategic communications plans. Back to you, Regent President Milner.
Thank you. At this time, we'd like to officially recognize the service, commitment, and contributions of one of our colleagues whose term on the board has ended, Regent Chuck Pruitt. We'll recognize Regent Vasquez and Regent Harsey at tomorrow's meeting. But before calling on Regent Bradley to lead us in the resolution of appreciation, I'd like to just make a few comments. Is Chuck here? Chuck? Come on, make your way up here, Chuck, please. When I arrived to the board in 2012, I had never met Chuck before. Our paths just had never crossed. Regent Pruitt has been a true example in these past 4 years, and I've come to very much appreciate both his mentorship and his leadership both during that time and in the past. He has been, had a sensible approach. He's been both filled with integrity and with good judgment, and especially humor. He has an absolute commitment to this system and a commitment to the Board of Regents, and you will be very much missed by all of our colleagues, including me. Now, I want to thank you, and we all want to thank you, Chuck. And I'd like to invite Regent Bradley to come and read the resolution. Regent Bradley.
Thank you, President Milner. Good afternoon, everyone. A classic liberal arts education from Macalester College makes one aware of great sayings in literature, in politics, and life in general. And a PhD from Harvard just adds to one's collection. And so it is that Regent Pruitt always seems to have had the appropriate quote for any occasion. Were he to think about recognizing himself on this occasion, Regent Pruitt might, with his self-deprecating wit, remind us of a quote from Abraham Lincoln, who said, "The world will little note nor long remember what we say here." Well, maybe it will, and maybe it won't. But here's something that serious students of public higher education in Wisconsin will remember, and that is Chuck Pruitt's leadership that he demonstrated when he was president of this board. One of the toughest tests of leadership is a major existential crisis. Well, Chuck had that in spades when he was president, with the fight over whether the system would stay together, with its flagship UW-Madison campus remaining a vital part of it. It was President Clinton who remarked that there was a part of him that was disappointed that there was really no national existential crises during his 2 terms as president. There was no Civil War, there was no Great Depression, there was no 9/11, because he said that for history to see U.S. presidents as truly great, they have to have brought the country through one of these crises. Well, if that's the measuring stick, then Chuck need feel no disappointment about his presidency of the Board of Regents. Now, people of intelligence and goodwill can disagree over the most appropriate and the most effective structure for public higher education in their state at a given moment in time. And that was the case in the debate over the value of the UW system during Chuck's presidency. But nobody can disagree that Chuck put forward an all-out commitment to pressing the case for what he believed was the value of the UW institutions working together in a unified system on behalf of all the people of the state. Along with then President Kevin Riley, Chuck rallied the chancellors, and through the chancellors, many others, around that vision. There was an evening when Chuck and Kevin gathered the chancellors for a dinner meeting at Brigham House. After a lot of animated and opinionated discussion, Chuck turned to the chancellors and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to pick your jersey." Well, sometimes leadership needs to be unambiguous. And that's why some of us occasionally refer to Regent Pruitt as "pick your jersey Pruitt." Now, there are other important aspects of Chuck's tenure on this board that are nicely captured in the resolution that I'll read. But there's one item that I would like to add. As a witness to every year of Chuck's service on this board, it's important for me to note that being a regent and an admired president of the Regents was never about Chuck. It was always about the university and the people of Wisconsin it serves. Now, I'm not a quotesmith like Professor Pruitt, but I had a mother who instilled in her children an appreciation for poetry. And it's part of Rudyard Kipling's poem called "If," a father's advice to his son, that I think capture essential elements of Chuck's service and leadership on this board. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can fill the unforgiving moment with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. So Chuck, as I read this resolution of appreciation, I want you to know that we wish you the earth and everything that's in it. The resolution of appreciation for Charles R. Pruitt. Whereas Charles R. Chuck Pruitt has served the citizens of Wisconsin with distinguished leadership during his nearly 13 years on the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents, including 2 years as board president and 2 years as vice president. And whereas during his tenure as board president, Chuck worked with then System President Kevin Riley, the chancellors, and others to launch a successful effort to maintain a unified UW system, guided by a conviction in the value of the UW institutions working together on behalf of the people of Wisconsin. And whereas Chuck has served on numerous standing and other committees, including Business and Finance for 8 years, serving as chair and also vice chair, Student Discipline and other student appeals, serving as chair of that committee for 2 years, Research, Economic Development and Innovation, Education Committee, Audit Committee, Personnel Matters Review, and Regent Improvement, and has served as a Regent representative on the UW Hospital and Clinics Authority Board, as well as Regent liaison to the Association of Governing Boards for 4 years, including having been elected twice as secretary of the AGB board, and recently having been elected vice chair for a term beginning in July. And whereas Chuck worked to publicly honor the commitment of outstanding UW educators, having served on the Teaching Excellence Awards Committee for 8 years and the Diversity Awards Committee, and whereas Chuck often said, while serving on the board, leadership matters, as he made a concerted effort to maintain competitive salaries to retain and attract strong chancellors, faculty, and staff, and as he took an active role in selecting strong leadership, chairing 3 chancellor selection committees, UW-Madison, UW-River Falls, and UW Colleges and Extension, and serving on 6 more committees, for Eau Claire, Green Bay, Madison, Milwaukee, 2 times, and UW River Falls, as well as serving on the Special Regent Committee for the UW System President Search in 2004. And whereas Chuck was deeply concerned about keeping costs to students and families as low as possible while not sacrificing educational quality, and in his role as board president was an early advocate for textbook affordability, which led to the board's approval of system-wide guidelines later codified in policy to help curb textbook costs, including expanding the university system's textbook rental program. And whereas Chuck's experience as both a faculty member and a business leader gave him rare insight into how the academic and financial sides of the university need to interact. And as board president, he provided a new, more comprehensive vision for the Board of Regents office, directing the office to offer additional analysis and support and to periodically review board policies to ensure they provide enduring statements of the board's expectations. And whereas Chuck was always keen to bring together coalitions across lines of party, region, and background in the interest of ensuring for Wisconsin residents the best university system in the country. Be it therefore resolved that on behalf of the citizens of the state and a grateful university community, the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents highly commends Charles R. Pruitt for his leadership and achievements as president, vice president, and as a member of the UW System Board of Regents. Signed, Regina M. Milner, President of the Board of Regents. Regent Pruitt.
Well, thank you. If that resolution had gone on any longer, I was leaving, so I'm glad it ended at some point. Thank you, though. Thank you, President Milner. Thank you, Mark. I have literally spent my entire time as a member of the board following in the footsteps of Mark Bradley. I came to the board a few months after he arrived. I followed him as chair of the Business and Finance Committee. He became vice president, so I had to become vice president. I then succeeded him as president of the board. And I can only imagine his justifiable irritation to always have to look behind him and see me standing there. But Mark, you have been an inspiration and a mentor to me. I have learned so much, and I thank you for giving me the chance to learn so much simply by watching how you did it. I made the mistake of looking at your afternoon agenda, and I now realize you have far more important people to hear from and far more important things to learn about than anything I might say. And I would add that this realization is not new to me. Indeed, humility is something I learned fairly early in my time on the board, and I've said often ever since that being a regent is a little like being the caretaker of a cemetery. There are a lot of people under you, but you're not sure any of them are listening. So in recognition of that sad fact, I will try not to be here long. But I do want to begin by thanking a number of people. I have served during the tenure of 3 UW system presidents, Catherine Lyle, Kevin Riley, and Raymond Cross. 3 more different people you could not imagine, but each an outstanding leader working in an almost impossibly difficult job. To the UW system staff, I started to compose a list including each one of you who have helped me along the way, from Tom Stafford's wise legal counsel to Heather Leroy's wizardry with words to David Miller and Frida Harris's facility with budgets. And quickly the list just kept growing, and I soon realized that I was going to forget somebody or another. So let me, without wanting to ever do that, let me just thank all of you collectively and individually for the many times you kept me from making a complete fool of myself, and I absolve you of any responsibility for those too many times when, despite your best counsel, I still managed to say or do something that surely had you shaking your head in disbelief. But thank you. I do want to make one exception here. 2 weeks into my term as Regent President, I somehow managed to do what 12 other presidents before me had failed to do. I drove then Regent Secretary Judy Temby into retirement. With my presidency at stake, talk of impeachment in the air, as I recall, we set on a search for a replacement. And with the help of Mark and my dear friend Mike Spector, we found Jane Rideau. It was one of the best decisions I ever made. Jane and her team have transformed the Regent office into one dedicated to ensuring this body can be the policy-making body it needs to be. All the while, she and Jess and the team have made all our lives as Regents so much easier and so much better. Thank you, Jane, for saving my presidency and for all you've done ever since. To the chancellors, deans, and provosts who sit in those rows, and I'm certain from time to time, maybe even more than from time to time, must ask yourself, what are these people doing? Trust me, I've wondered that from time to time myself, but you are the stars of this show. I have always said that the selection of leadership is the most important responsibility of the Regents, and I have been so honored to serve on committees that have chosen exceptional leaders like Becky Blank and Mark Mone, Dean Van Galen, Kathy Sandine, and Gary Miller, and I applaud with equal enthusiasm the work of other Regent committees who have, without exception, chosen remarkable leaders to guide our campuses in these most difficult of times. And I, as Mark alluded to, will always be especially appreciative of the time that the chancellors and the deans stood as one to preserve this union and this 45-year experiment in university governance. To my colleagues on this board, along with Mark, I've served the longest with Ed and Tony, and I will cherish your friendship and take pride in much of what we accomplished together. But I also want to say a word to the Regents who have come to this board in the last 5 years. When you've been on the board as long as I have, lots happens in your life. Some good, some not so good. In the latter category for me is I lost my wife of 40 years to cancer. Barbara believed that one's political party affiliation was a very poor predictor of the kind of person you are. She knew some of you, and without exception, I can say she was a big fan of each of you. And over the last 5 years, I've come to appreciate Barbara's view a good deal more. And I can say I've genuinely enjoyed coming to know so many of you, relished some of the debates we've had, and I hope been at least a passable colleague over that time. And I continue to cling to the hope and belief that this university is best served by Regents who, when they pass through the doors of Van Nuys Hall or the UW-Union, strive not to be Republican Regents or Democratic Regents, but simply Regents of one of the finest public university systems in the country. Can I get a little water? So I should likely stop here and have a drink of water, which I will, thank you. Because I have had more than ample time over the last 13 years to express my opinions. Indeed, I have likely violated multiple times Mo Udall's admonition that everything has been said, but not everyone has had a chance to say it, and just gone on and repeated the obvious over and over again. And recognizing that, though, I do still have two thoughts, and they are, you should be relieved to know, not about budget cuts or tuition freezes, or paying our faculty and staff more competitively, or textbook costs, or any of those matters, because you have certainly heard more than enough from me about that. But I would like to beg your indulgence and leave you with just two thoughts. One, the Wisconsin idea was not a drafting error. It is the single most powerful mission statement of any public university system in the nation. Just consider these words. The mission of the system is to develop human resources, to discover and disseminate knowledge, to extend knowledge and its application beyond the boundaries of its campus, and to improve the human condition. Basic to every purpose of the system is the search for truth. Mark Twain was fond of saying, a lie goes halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. And in this age and at this time, could there possibly be anything more important than the search for truth and the sifting and winnowing of knowledge in the search for that truth? Dr. King used to tell us, If you're a street sweeper, sweep the streets like Beethoven wrote music, like Shakespeare wrote poetry, like Rembrandt painted pictures. Sweep the streets so well that when you're gone, all the hosts of heaven and earth will say, there was a street sweeper who did his job well. It is the responsibility of all of us, and the special responsibility of the Board of Regents, to be the best of all street sweepers when it comes to the defense and protection of the Wisconsin idea. Charles Van Nuys was right in 1904, and 112 years later, the principally extolled that I shall never be content until the beneficent influence of the university reaches every home in the state is timeless, valued, and an irreplaceable principle. I've always found it ill-advised for folks to try to mess with the words of James Madison and Thomas Jefferson when it comes to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and I'd suggest it's an equally bad idea to mess with the ideals of Charles Van Nuys. The Wisconsin idea does not need to be modernized, modified, changed, or improved. It is fine just the way it is. Second, almost 3 years ago, the Board of they're busy, folks, they're busy. They got some stuff to do. Thank you. Second, almost 3 years ago, the Board of Regents hosted a meeting with the theme, Finding Common Ground. At one of the sessions that day, one of the leaders of the state legislature told this board that we had a choice. We could either be cheerleaders for the university or advocates for the taxpayers. I thought on that day, and I believe even more strongly today, that that is a false choice. Should Regents be advocates for the taxpayers? Of course you should. The taxpayers and all our stakeholders deserve to know and expect that every dollar spent here is spent wisely and well. But to suggest that you can do that only at the expense of being a cheerleader for this remarkable university is utter nonsense. And I would challenge anyone to a debate anywhere about that, and I would tell them this. Go on a day in the middle of May or a day in the middle of December to the UW-M Panther Arena and watch those graduates walk across that stage, 39% of whom are the first in their family ever to receive a college education, and see the look of pride and joy in their eyes and the eyes of their family, and tell me you can't be a cheerleader for that. Go to the Institute of Discovery. Talk to the scientists who are trying to find the cure for Alzheimer's or cancer or Parkinson's disease or congenital blindness. Those scientists are here for one reason, because there is something called the University of Wisconsin. And tell me you can't be a cheerleader for that. Tomorrow you're going to honor winners of the Regents Teaching Excellence Awards. Go to the classroom of one of those winners in Green Bay or Parkside or Platteville or Eau Claire and see the magic that happens when a great teacher inspires in her students a love of learning or new discovery or some other new event in their lives. And tell me you can't be a cheerleader for that. Being a cheerleader for this university system isn't beneath you as a regent. It's your highest calling. It's been an honor to serve. Looking back, I can only say I did my best. I hope it was good enough. Thank you all.
One of the best parts of getting our Regent show out on the road is the opportunity for us to learn something more about the great campuses that make up the UW system. That's certainly true here in Milwaukee. This campus community is a very busy place, and here to tell us more about what's going on is Chancellor Mark Mone. Chancellor Mone?
Thank you, Regent Milner. Good afternoon, Board of Regents, fellow colleagues across the UW system, faculty, staff, students, UW-Milwaukee. It's very difficult to follow Regent Chuck Pruitt. He's so eloquent, humorous, and remarkably insightful, plus he made a lot of points. So I'll just say thank you and have a good afternoon. So, all right, I'll take a little bit longer. I would like to say, first of all, that each of our UW system institutions, on behalf of the leadership that we have represented here from all of our campuses, each of them have remarkable and special qualities. They all have also tremendous significance for their respective regions as we all continue to pursue the Wisconsin idea relentlessly. I am delighted today to be able to share what is unique, what is important, what are some of the significant accomplishments of UWM under the title Made in Milwaukee, Shaping the World. This afternoon I'll talk about 4 different areas. I'll cover first of all our dual research and access mission and why those are important, particularly in this region of the state. I'll move on and talk about our path to becoming a research institution and the need to maintain it going forward. Third, I'll talk about student access and success, what is particularly unique about UWM in this region, and then I'll talk about how UW-Milwaukee contributes to Milwaukee's potential and Wisconsin as a whole. About 2/3 of the way into my talk, I'll ask President Tim Sheehy from the Milwaukee Metropolitan Association of Commerce to offer his comments and perspectives on some of the aspects of our access and research mission and what we mean to the community. To begin, I'll start with a little bit of history. Some of you know this, but many of you may not. This is a picture of Mitchell Hall, one of the mainstays of our campus, in 1956. A merger with the Milwaukee Extension Center in 1956 marked when the Regents officially sanctioned UWM as a doctoral research university. It was unique in the University of Wisconsin system to have a research university in the largest metropolitan area in the state. There's an important thread that's woven throughout our history. It's singularly unique. We have shifted, we have morphed, we have expanded because the region and state needed something more and we needed to transform. This important point is critical when we think about this. When needs have arisen in the region, in the state, and in the country, UWM has delivered. We have this dual mission. It's research and access. I like to think of it as a central mission, research and access. We're the state's only public urban research university, and we're distinguished because of our access mission. We serve the largest population in the urban center of the state. It's foundational, and it's critically important. I'll say that theme over and over again. It needs to be stressed. It allows me to now share with that foundation some of the accomplishments that we've made in both of these areas, but also why they're both important and essential for this region and our state's vitality. It also will allow me to position and discuss what's needed for us to enable success in both these areas in the future. I'll start with research and ask you to take a look at this video, which shares some of the highlights, just a small sample of some of the remarkable things that we do on this campus every day.
UWM, there's research happening on every school, every college, every department. I mean, this is a broad-based research university, which is what the Carnegie R1 designation means.
This is a recognition of the research efforts we have put in for the last decades. It's not happening overnight.
It shows that the institution is headed in a direction where we really contribute to the forefront of knowledge.
Our Research 1 designation, along with the Carnegie classification, is emblematic of who we are as an institution.
Being an R1 institution will help us in recruiting top students to come to UWM, also in receiving research funding.
When I first came, there was a nucleus of faculty doing research that eventually grew, and I'm very gratified by the fact that now My work and the work of the others here have helped us to gain R1 status.
The research we do pushes the frontiers of physics and astronomy. The highlight of my career thus far is definitely the discovery of gravitational waves.
Gravitational waves discovery opens a whole new field of astronomy in a sense.
We announced the first observation of gravitational waves from a pair of black holes that collided out in the universe 1.3 billion light years from Earth.
So that, you know, is really an important development for which no doubt there'll be a Nobel Prize awarded.
Without Leonard, we wouldn't have such a fantastic group here.
I figured I'd be long gone by the time LIGO was able to actually, you know, detect these things.
My research is really literally all over the map, and now I'm a historian of the world. I was the editor-in-chief of a 9-volume Cambridge World History. Just came out last year. We'd worked on it for almost 10 years. One of the reasons that I was really pleased to see that Cambridge University Press came here is that I think that it's a global recognition by the top of the academic heap that there is excellent research going on here at UWM.
My research looks at the intersection of race and law. It has a lot to teach us about the history of where our problems with race come from and also why we still have lingering problems. In 2010, I began to work with America's Black Holocaust Museum. Even though the museum had closed, there was still a very important group of folks who were going to make sure that the institution itself and the importance of the institution remained vibrant in the Milwaukee community. America's Black Holocaust Virtual Museum is important because now we reach an international audience.
We performed series of validation studies in a laboratory. One of the most rewarding aspects of this whole process was that students were working together and they developed a product that's now on the market. The range that we designed has very unique features that make it safer and easier for workers to use. In my field of occupational injury prevention, we scientists try to find ways to save people's lives, prevent injuries, and make work easier.
A few years ago, when we invented this sensing platform, we understand there's a significant need in real-time detection of different contaminants in water. Many of the pipelines we have in the U.S. still contain lead. If you don't have a real-time sensor to monitor the water quality, then our human being will become the sensors, which is the last thing you wanted to see. There are also biomedical applications of these sensors. For example, we currently are working on the detection of Ebola virus and acid reflux using the same platform. We're aiming at some of the larger scale societal problems to address. But once solved, those solutions can have a significant impact on our society.
I just love the fact that when you talk to faculty and staff across campus, you get that diversity of activity that is contributing to the forefront of research and scholarship.
The thing that's kept me here at UWM the most, it's now more than 3 decades, is a feeling that I have that I'm making a difference in students' lives.
We stand here as a bastion for educating the people of the city.
As long as the adequate funding can be obtained, the future is limitless.
UW-Milwaukee is one of the most important and significant urban research institutions in the country. We merge high-level research and community engagement as best as any school in the country.
So I think that video gives you an appreciation for the title of my talk, which is truly Made in Milwaukee, Shaping the World. Life-changing economic development human condition, a number of different aspects that are affected by that. And I must tell you, I remain in awe of our faculty, our staff, and students, which I will talk much more about later. They are truly among the best in the world. You've heard earlier about the momentous R1 Research 1 designation we received and the scale of what that means. We were honored to have Presidents Milner and Cross, along with Regent Hall, come and join us for our celebration about a month ago on campus. It was one of the most joyous events in the history of this campus, one of the most important achievements we have been recognized for. This places us as one of 115 universities in the country out of 4,665, the top 2% of research universities. This has been built upon decades of work. We've achieved this pinnacle because of long-standing commitment to become a top-tier research university. In fact, in 1965, we had only one doctoral program, and we didn't have a doctoral graduate at that point. Today, in 2015, we have 33 different doctoral programs, and we put out about 250 doctoral students a year, which is a critical component of the R1 research designation. It really speaks to the quality and the impact of our faculty, and importantly, what happens here. What happens in the classroom, what happens in laboratories, what happens in the community as a result of the applied and engaged types of research, as well as the fundamental basic research that we do. It also speaks to the economic driver, not just in terms of the federal funds that are coming into this area, in terms of the millions of dollars and the expenditures that we make, but really the types of partnerships that I'll also speak about later. More broadly, I often pose the question, what does our Research 1 designation mean? And I'll jump to this slide, which speaks to the funding. These are a few of the examples. I won't go through each one of these. Many of these were captured in terms of some of the comments that were made in the videos by some of our star professors. But I'd like to underscore some of the themes that really are depicted by the work that's done in physics. In the middle of the picture, you can see the Professor Sandra McClelland in Haiti working on, after the earthquake, some of the low-cost but important filtration, water filtration applications, some work that we recognize in the bottom with our student research types of activities. So there's many other examples going on. But the point of these is that public research universities like UW-Milwaukee introduce vital research and innovation. It's this discovery around human, scientific, and technological applications that's critically important to the world. These programs have national and international recognition. They produce discoveries and this new knowledge. We can talk about the work in physics, we can talk about nanoparticles, we can talk about the discovery of more effective drugs, sensor technology, ergonomics and economics, geopolitics, and a number of other areas. I like to relate those to every day. There's newspaper headlines that talk about the challenges and the issues that are facing us. In the Great Lakes earlier this week, there was articles about ballast issues with contaminants coming into the Great Lakes. Our sensors are being developed to help achieve low cost and much quicker development and detection of contaminants. We saw in the video a number of things that sensors are being applied to. In the last several weeks, there have been multiple articles talking about Wisconsin's place in economic development regarding entrepreneurship, business startups, job growth creation. We are an engine for that, not just because of our students, but because of a lot of the research that's conducted. So I could give you application after application, world-changing, region-changing, and of course, life-changing. So these innovations, as you've seen, can be commercialized, patented, turned into applications in so many different areas that benefit individuals, societies, and our partners. The snap-on wrench that you saw a little bit in the video, energy storage with Johnson Controls, work in imaging and a number of areas with GE Healthcare, the list goes on and on. The other thing that it does is it enables us to provide our students with a unique quality experience. We know that research, especially for undergraduates, is one of the most effective, high-impact learning practices, but also an important tool for retention. It provides remarkable opportunities, and that's a good segue for me to talk a little bit more about the students, but let's talk first about what is the student profile at UWM. As I mentioned earlier, each of our campuses is unique. Some of these statistics you might be familiar with, but I would guess in aggregate, there's some things that you didn't know about UWM. Our total enrollment is 27,156. We have, as identified, those who get GI benefits, almost 1,100, which represents not only almost twice the number in the state, but it's more than any in a 6-state region. We're also recognized consistently, not just as a Pat Tillman military veteran-friendly institute, but we're one of the very few institutions that has full-time on-site VA staff member who helps with a lot of the transitions that veterans make into school, out of the military, and also into the workforce. Of the number of total students, 22,000 are undergraduates. You can see some of the other markers there, 28% students of color, almost 9,000 first generation, one of the top universities in the country for LGBT+, and a number in our honors college. So there's a number of remarkable attributes of our students. To tell you a little bit more about our students, let's watch this video.
When I first got to Milwaukee, I was terrified. I didn't know anybody. I was really shy. UWM really brought me out of my shell. I love that it's one of the most military-friendly campuses. I see fellow military members, and I like that we have kind of a camaraderie on campus. I'm really proud that I can serve my country. The Sport and Rec department offered jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts, so I decided, why not try it while I'm here? I absolutely fell in love with the sport. Winning my first fight, the experience was amazing, and as soon as I walked out of the cage, I knew for sure that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Graduation means a lot to me because I'm the first person in my immediate family to graduate from college with the military, and it means a lot that I was able to accomplish 2 majors. UWM has been the place that has really transformed me from the young, shy 18-year-old into the adult airman, professional athlete, and role model I am today.
Over up to page 2. What I really love about the idea of being a teacher, it's those small moments where you're helping out a student and they finally get it. That's definitely the most rewarding thing. I'm a secondary education major at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. My expectation is I'll find a job in MPS. I grew up going to MPS schools all my life, so I guess I kind of feel like this is a way I can maybe give back to the community that I was raised in. You know, I was for a long time working 40 hours a week, paying for a lot of schooling myself. Scholarships makes this whole experience possible for a lot of people, and it provides the type of assistance that is necessary to allow people to pursue some of these higher goals that they have. For me, graduating, it represents being able to do something not only that I think I can do well, but something I can enjoy.
It's good to be alive right about now.
My name is Alexis Nash. I am a UWM Student Startup Challenge winner, and I'm the founder of PopSpace. I knew that for me, I needed to create an opportunity for myself. Knowing about the UW Startup Challenge, I went ahead and pitched an idea to them that I thought would help other entrepreneurs like myself. Milwaukee has a lot of underutilized spaces. Giving entrepreneurs access to those spaces in order to increase their presence among customers, among their market, I felt was beneficial to them growing their business. And so I pitched that idea to the UWM Startup Challenge. They thought it was a really great idea, and then I became one of 9 winners. But I didn't really know how I was going to get it off the ground because I had no previous experience in this area. So they really helped coach me through that. I think over the past year I've learned to just put the pedal to the metal, just go out there, hit the pavement, and just do it.
Well, let's hear it for our students. You know, those are 3 students, but I have to tell you, there are just a remarkable number, 27,000 plus that we get to work with every day. And it's remarkable from an employer perspective as well as where our students go in so many facets of life. We have a work ethic and we have a remarkably capable student body, and it's just an honor to be able to serve these students. And I always say in education what we do, and I think you appreciate this, Regents, that it's truly a noble work that we do to really help this transformation and see this. The first story, Aaliyah, just a little bit more. Leah Letson, who's the double major, she joined us at lunch today. She told me not only did she talk about this is her new career. She served 7 years in the Air Force. She's in the National Guard. She'll be deployed next year. But her future is about MMA. She's mixed martial arts. She's become a tournament champion. We're going to see her go a long way. It's really neat to see her in that transformation, and just an amazing story on so many different levels. So given the student background, the financial profile that again continues to show the unique aspects at UW-Milwaukee, you can see some of the statistics here, and really what we have to really work to make sure we ensure success around with an urban population. This is what we deal with every day in terms of financial advising and the types of resources that we need to provide and continue to provide for continued student success. I ask you to think about the scale and what's at stake and what's at risk here in the context of if we have 5,300 graduates a year, in the context of what Tim Sheehy is going to talk about, thinking about the labor pipeline, and then, of course, building on the research partnerships, what really is critically important for the future. So to ensure the success of our students, with the access mission that we have, there's a number of things that we do at UW-Milwaukee. I think it's fair to say many of our institutions do many of the same types of things. We have across all of our schools and colleges, and we have 12 at UWM, we have high quality education, we have high impact learning opportunities. The qualities that I look at when we look at what is important for student success usually fall into retention and graduation, preparation for life after college, and the quality of the experience that happens while you're here. We pride ourselves in our teaching quality, the types of educational aspects. We also have many, and a part of this is because of our location, but a lot of it is our approach. It's the real-world learning and professional development opportunities through internships, through co-ops, through a lot of different partnerships that we have. We also have developed over the last 5 years a dramatic number of living learning communities. In many areas we have so much demand that we've got multiple learning communities in the same areas. We have a lot of research opportunities, as I've alluded to earlier, for both our undergraduates and graduates. This is what happens with our Research One status, that we can provide those types of applications, although many of our UW institutions engage students in research as well. One of the challenges that you've heard about if you're at the Education Committee meeting this morning was the work that we have been doing on remediation. And I'd like to just give you a bit of a snapshot that's way too busy, so I'm not going to go through all the details. But I'd like to draw out some key points from this and draw some very practical examples. We initiated, working with the UW colleges, a partnership on math reform. This is transformational, and we are now seen as a national model. Let me just fast forward to the bottom line and tell you what this means. In 2012, 27% of our low-achieving students who started math, only 27% completed in their first year basic math remediation courses. As a result of our math transformation 2 years later, so we started this as a pilot, and if you were at the Regents meeting 2 years ago in Stevens Point, you heard some of the initial pilot work by Dr. Kyle Swanson and Dr. Phyllis King, who came and presented that. Today, what we can say is that 77%, this is a factor of 3 times as many students achieve math competency at the end of their first year. There's nothing like that anywhere else that we have seen that has achieved that. It hasn't been easy, and this is not teaching a single course differently. It's a significant undertaking. It's hugely successful, but it hasn't been easy. And the need for us to continue to be able to do this is going to require continued investment, and it's going to continue required attention to this in a lot of different areas. More broadly, what this means is that students are achieving more credits toward degree faster, they're graduating more quickly, and it's costing them less. This is also something that we started in math, but will scale to our English reading and writing programs as well. So it has huge implications for the types of things that we know are critical for student access and success. There's one other piece that we pride ourselves on that's new, the development of our Lubar Center for Entrepreneurship. We spent a fair amount of time and had David Lubar, the president of Lubar & Company, join us this morning for the Research, Economic Development, Innovation Program, where he, I, and our Lubar Center director, Brian Thompson, talked about this in much more detail, but I will just stay at a summary level and tell you that this new center, which is enabled by a gift from the Lubar family and a match from UW System in terms of the physical capital side of this, which will also house our Welcome Center, has the potential to be transformational for the region, not just in terms of what students learn across all our schools and colleges for business growth and startup, but existing employers today want students to be more innovative, more able to engage, critical thinking, foundation of what we provide, both in a liberal arts classical education as well as the particular areas in which students major. But we are able to expose them to a lot of hands-on ideas through a whole array of programs that are housed and really prompted and promoted by the Lubar Center for Entrepreneurship. Where does this lead us? Where does this take us? Well, a few different levels. First, at the national and sometimes global level, we have a number of alumni who've gone on and had some remarkable impact. Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, Beth Pritchard, former CEO of Bath & Body Works, Frank Caliendo, the Mad TV and NFL impersonator in a number of different areas, Michelle Graebner, who curated the Whitney Museum, Jim Reichel, three-time Oscar Award winner, featured film special effects for probably 40 major films and additional quite a few others. Maggie Rakowski. Maggie's role is, she's one of only 2 female Navy admirals. Fewer than 90 women have achieved that distinction, ever promoted to admiral, and she was the first U.S. Nurse Corps officer to be named fleet surgeon. These individuals give back in remarkable ways. Last night I was emailing Gail Klappa, who's the recently retired president and CEO of We Energies. Gail is an alumni of our College of Letters and Science and Communication, also received an honorary doctorate from UWM. I was congratulating him for being named CEO of the Year from Business World magazine. And it started me, it just occurred to me, what are some of the other local areas in which our alumni have gone? And it became an alphabet soup. I just had a little fun with it. You can think of We Energies, WE, ARCW, AIDS Resource Center of Wisconsin. One of our graduates is the president today of that. Northwestern Mutual, Ed Zor, a double graduate, was the president and CEO. Rockwell Automation, Keith Nosbush, graduate of UWM, Lubar School. Blood Center of Wisconsin, Jackie Frederick, Lubar School. Harley Davidson, Jim Seymour, a graduate. St. Anthony's, one of our distinguished colleagues here, with Jose Vasquez as one of our graduates. MATC, Vicki Martin, one of our graduates. You see where I'm going here? United Community Center, Ricardo Diaz, a graduate, and the African American Chamber of Wisconsin, Dr. Eve Hall, one of our graduates. So it's a remarkable with, just off the top of my head, and we could keep going and going. But it's not just at the executive level. It's not just prominent, innovative, important companies that we lead. It's how we fill the talent pipeline. It's 170,000 graduates from UWM, 74% of whom have stayed in this region and make a difference as accountants, as chemists, as historians, as actuarial, as librarians, as marketers, as economists, police officers, social workers, artists, and architects. The list goes on and on. If Stan Stojkovic were here, he would tell you that we have more police chiefs in the state of Wisconsin than from any other campus. And we could go through and through and talk about nursing and engineering, remarkable areas. And what that leads to then is the idea that we have a history and legacy on the one hand of what I call our talent collaboration. We're focusing today one of our signature events, and we had last year Darian Driver, the superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools, Vicki Martin, the president of MATC, and myself do a presentation on what we call M cubed. M cubed is not an accidental name. It's deliberately meant to be exponential, talking about the power of the three of us working together. We represent 143,000 students in public education in the state. There's no other combination that is as large nor as meaningful in terms of the pipeline from the talent side. What that leads to then is these types of organizations, and there's hundreds of them, if not thousands, that really are impacted in this way. But if you think about some of the larger names you see in healthcare, organizations such as the Blood Center of Wisconsin and the Medical College of Wisconsin, in manufacturing, your Briggs & Stratton, GE Healthcare, Johnson Controls, and Rockwell, community engagement, Silver Spring Neighborhood Center, and so forth. Really a number of different types of partnerships. That's what happens when you take a Research One university, a success, student success and access goal, and really talk about how do we engage the partnerships and make that significant difference. With that portion done, I'd ask Tim Sheehy, who's the president of Milwaukee Metro Association of Commerce, to provide his perspectives. Tim is the president of MMAC. MMAC serves 300,000 employees in this region through hundreds of leading organizations. One of Tim's signature events that he's continued to work on is what's called the Blueprint for Economic Prosperity. The MMAC talks an awful lot about economic development, and Tim is intimately involved with work with K-12, higher education, and a number of other workforce areas. Tim is a graduate of UW-Madison, one of the stars of their baseball team in a different era when they had Division I baseball, and he's a huge supporter of everything that is UW system. Tim?
Good evening or good afternoon. Welcome to Milwaukee. Mark, I appreciate the reference on baseball, but I played when I don't even think mitts had webbing in them, so you can take that for what it's worth. I would like to just start by acknowledging Mark, though. We're thrilled professionally to have Mark as Chancellor of UWM. I think he's the right person at the right time. And personally, I'm thrilled. Mark was a neighbor of mine for 25 years, and I'm so happy he found good public housing. So, but again, I think the right person at the right time to lead this university. So I'm not up here, though, today because I was Mark's neighbor for 25 years. I just wanted to take a couple minutes and talk to you about why the mission of UWM and why the mission of the UW system is so important to economic development here in southeastern Wisconsin and to economic development in the entire state. So if you think about it, and I know you have a lot of drama at your meetings, so I'm not going to add to that, but I do want to provoke some thoughts here by talking about why this is so important and why the mission of UWM is so important. We're in what I think is an unprecedented global war for talent. And the reason I say that is, in the 30 years I've been in my job, I've been exposed to a lot of companies, and I've never seen a time when the economy is as unpredictable, when it's changed so fast and so rapidly as the time that we're living in today. And so talent is so important because it is the best offense and the best defense in an economy that, as I said, is more volatile and less predictable than in any time that we've seen. You can't look around the corner and predict the disruptions in careers, the disruption by technology, or the disruption in markets. They come so fast, and they come from places that we don't expect them. So as I said, the best offense and the best defense is talent, and that's why there's a war for it globally. We need a vibrant UW system to provide that talent, and we need a vibrant UWM in that system to help Milwaukee in this global war for talent. I think about this, as Mark said, through the lens of our members who employ about 300,000 people here in southeastern Wisconsin and probably more than 1 million across the globe as they try to compete in a rapidly changing world. I think about it from the perspective, I spent the last 2 days, I'm one of 6 trustees for the State of Wisconsin Investment Board, and I see the challenges that we have in deploying the $100 billion a year that we have to try to get a return on that, and how challenging and volatile that is for the professionals that do that. And let me just talk about 3 things as I close here. One is, what drives growth? I talked about the unpredictable nature of the economy that we're all dealing with, but what drives growth for southeastern Wisconsin? In fact, what drives growth for any region in the state of Wisconsin? It's really simple. We have to pay really close attention to the companies that are in our area that export their goods or services outside the region. If you think about it, that is the only way you get new growth and you get net new income. So companies, small or large, that have few, if any, customers here export a good or service outside the region. In southeastern Wisconsin, we have about 1 million jobs. 275,000 of those 1 million jobs are in companies that do that. They export a good or service outside the region. Those 275,000 jobs create another 325,000 jobs here in companies that are supplying goods or services to those exporters. And the spending of those 600,000 jobs create the other 400,000 jobs, right? Education, healthcare, transportation. Where do I eat? Where do I go see a movie? And so if we don't get it right, if we're not supplying the talent, if we're not supplying the leadership, if we're not creating the entrepreneurs who are going to export goods and services outside the region, we don't see job growth in this state, and we don't see job growth in this region. I was reminded of that driving up here today. I stopped at the light right beneath the new Northwestern Mutual $500 million, 1 million square foot office tower that's being built, and there were hundreds of construction workers out there on their lunch break. So think about the graduates from UWM in their actuarial sciences program, in their finance department, in their marketing department, and as Mark mentioned recently, running the company. The talent that UWM produces to help Northwestern Mutual manage other people's money is what creates the opportunity for that company to grow and create all those jobs for those folks in the construction industry that I saw on their lunch break at noon. So it's critically important that we provide the talent to those clusters, whether it's food and beverage, power automation and controls, or finance. We've got to make sure that we never lose sight of the importance of that type of industry and those kinds of jobs to our economy. The next part about this is population trends, and universities are great at seeing this. I know the challenges with declining enrollment due to fewer kids, but this is poignantly important to Wisconsin and to southeastern Wisconsin. The advanced economies of the world, for the first time since 1950, are seeing a decline in their working age population. Let me say that once again. All the advanced economies in the world are seeing a decline in their working age population for the first time since 1950. Europe is declining at 20 to 25%, Japan at close to 30%, Russia and China at 20%. Even fast-growing markets like Brazil are going to grow only at an anemic pace of about 3% over the next 50 years. You bring that closer to home to the United States. From 1950 to 2000, the working age population in the United States grew by 127%. Between 2000 and 2050, the working age population in the United States will grow by only 36%. Everybody is going to be looking for talent to fuel, on an offensive nature and a defensive nature, their companies. If you look closer at home in southeastern Wisconsin, by 2023, we're predicting a little over 104,000 job openings, either due to retirements or to modest economic growth. During that same period of time, we're going to see 6,000 fewer people in our working age between 15 and 64. So we've got 100,000 raw job openings just due to demographics, which brings me to my conclusion, Mark, in terms of UWM's role. When I think about UWM, I think of it on the spectrum of ideas to jobs. We need the university here to help populate new opportunities, new ideas, new research, new companies, new people to run those companies, and we need those folks to come out and fuel the jobs that are going to be open and the jobs that are going to be created. And we need to do it in a way that is inclusive, that brings everybody to the table. And I don't say this as a statistic to pick on my alma mater, just to make the point. Of the 30,000 undergraduate students at UW-Madison, 600 of the 30,000 are African American. We've got to do a better job of preparing kids to go to 2-year and 4-year institutions, but we've got to pay particular attention to universities like UWM that are that bridge for the future that we're going to be that we're all going to create. So it's my pleasure to share some of my thoughts today with you. I appreciate the work that you all do as Regents. It's vitally important to our economic success, and continue to keep your eye on UWM. Thank you.
Tim, thank you. And one of the reasons I think Tim is most delighted I'm in this role is that I'm out of his neighborhood. So very good. Very good. So those are important perspectives, and I'd like to reinforce this idea about not just job preparedness today, but what we do at UWM that's particularly important, and most of our UW system institutions excel at this, is provide that foundation in critical thinking, broader perspectives, social sciences, liberal arts. Reason why that's important is that if you look at Bureau of Labor Statistics and Department of Labor, we're looking at the prediction right now that most individuals graduating from college will have between 12 and 15 different jobs over the course of their careers, which means you've got to be agile, you've got to be ready to think about what are the needs of the future as opposed to just thinking about what is tomorrow's job. So in recent times, including yesterday, you can see where Senator Darling was one person who underscored this point as well. Her op-ed yesterday that appeared in the Journal Sentinel was titled, UWM Research Helps Wisconsin Thrive. We've been fortunate to have Senator Darling on our campus, seeing different parts of the work that we do with our students, with our faculty, in a number of different areas over the last several years. And she points out, one of the quotes is, there's a good chance that the next big idea will also come from UWM, really underscoring your comments, Tim, about where do those new ideas come from? Where are the companies likely to be sparked? What is that innovation? She focused an awful lot on some of the work that's done in engineering and research and water and other areas, like you've seen in terms of some of the features today. From the other side of the aisle, on April 29th, Representative Dan Reamer wrote an article titled, UWM is Key to Milwaukee's Urban Revival. This was in the Journal Sentinel a month and a couple of weeks ago. And what he was able to focus on, because of his knowledge of UWM, is the vital work that we're doing in different neighborhoods, the types of things that we do in social welfare and nursing, and a number of health applications, as well as in a variety of different fields that are engaged in Milwaukee. So we see this on both sides, and we recognize the importance of the work that we're doing. Pulling these ideas together, as just a quick comment, over the last decade, we have seen significant growth in terms of the discovery and applications leading to talent commercialization. We've really strengthened our culture of entrepreneurship, and we expect a lot more of that in the future. And the talent, in terms of the pipeline, has just continued to grow in terms of the number of students who come from UWM and stay in the state. As we look to move forward, there are some challenges that the campus faces, and we have plans and actions underway to address those. The main things that we're doing is, first of all, to focus and continue to say, how do we maintain our status on the path to looking at, when we are renewed again for Research 1 status, how will we ensure that we have that? How do we continue to focus on access and student success through our engagement and the types of things that I've talked about? So with those as a focus, we have been engaging as we've looked at some of the impact of the budget cuts and some of the commitments that we have made without some of the initial funding that we were going to have to address our future. They really, without going through all the detail, fall into 3 different buckets. The first one is around administrative efficiencies. The second is in terms of academic realignment. And the third area is what we call strategic position control, looking to balance the budget, address cuts, and continue the quest for additional revenue sources. Regent support has been and will continue to be one of the most critical determinants of our ability to uphold and fulfill this. We very much appreciate everything the Regents have done, and we would ask and plea for continued support to be able to make the difference that we have been making for many, many years. It's critical. The potential of Milwaukee and why your support is so important comes down to these three pictures represent the relationship between University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and the state of Wisconsin. I call this a triadic relationship, and let me develop this a little bit further as I wrap up here. As we know, for any region to thrive, it must have strong public research universities. The current and future economic and educational investments in this region will determine whether metropolitan Milwaukee will thrive or decline in the future. I think, Tim, you'd agree with me in your position that we're at a turning point right now. We absolutely are at a turning point. You heard Tim talk about 110,000 positions by 2023 that we will need talent for. There's that side. There's the ability for this region to compete with other regional economic centers, not just in the United States, but really across the globe. If you think about the regions that do thrive, what is the heartthrob? What is the thing that really makes that engine go? We have seen deliberate choices in Denver, in Minneapolis, St. Paul, in Pittsburgh. If you go to Seattle today, where you see the construction booms going, those are not accidental results. Those are usually the basis of something that has happened because of collaborative municipalities working with higher education and a focus on industry that is going to make a big difference in the future. I won't name cities that have made some of the wrong choices. I can use that word because I'm not going to say the cities, but they have not made the right types of choices, and they have been challenged, and there is incredible tension in those cities, and they continue to make the headlines, often for the wrong reasons. We have a remarkable opportunity to keep Milwaukee going positive, and by so doing, keeping the state strong. We know that we're essential to the economic health and social well-being, not just of the city, not just of the region, but really the state and much beyond that. We're uniquely positioned. We serve that diverse cross-section of students, and we're committed to Wisconsin and have been for at least 60 years. This year, the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee celebrates 60 years. Many of our schools and colleges actually started in 1966, so they're in their 50 years. But I can also reach back deeper in history. I was having a conversation with Alan Shoho yesterday about the School of Education, and I said, when is your 50th coming up? Because we've been having all these celebrations. He said, Mark, we've been around, I think this is year 126 for us. And I'm like, okay. So they go back to 1885, and that just shows the history of what had been UWM. So here's what we know. The stronger and more vigorous this city and this region, the stronger and more vigorous is the state. And UWM provides that foundation. This is a triadic relationship, as you see in the picture here, between UWM, Milwaukee, and the state. And it's imperative that UWM continue to operate at an even higher level. I would argue and continue to maintain that UWM is one of the best investments that the state and UW system can make. We have a huge ROI for Wisconsin students, families, and taxpayers. My last slide is a picture of what we're here and what we're all about, what we're here for and all about. These are three of our students from among the 5,300 that graduated this last year, and they say it all. We did it, and we like to say it's a wonderful, honorable, and noble partnership that we have. Thank you for your support and for being here today.
Thank you, Chancellor Mone, and thank you, Tim. Are there any questions or comments for Chancellor Mone now, or for Mr. Sheehy? Tim, do you want to join us back at the podium? Are there any questions for them at this point? Well, I'd like to make a comment if anyone is thinking about a question. We have said, both President Cross and I and regents around this table have said that Milwaukee's economic growth and strength and health as a community is critical to the state of Wisconsin, and UW-Milwaukee is in a perfect position to do that. So we commend you for the work that you're doing. The message of needing workers is something that we heard up at UW Green Bay. It's something that we're hearing today, and I'm sure it's something that we're going to hear in Eau Claire when we go to Eau Claire. It's a critical state issue. So thank you very much for weighing in on this. Any other questions or comments? Well, again, thank you, and we will move on in our meeting. Thank you very much. All right, this time we turn our attention to the budget and several other items that require action by the full board this afternoon. We begin with the fiscal year 2017 annual operating budget. There are many moving parts to this budget that we should consider and discuss. Then we'll move on to an official recommendation from this board to the Higher Education Aids Board, that's HEAB, about how to fund that how much funding that agent should request in the upcoming biennium for financial aid for students. Again, we begin with the proposed annual budget for the fiscal year that begins in less than 1 month. As our entire state continues to feel the ripple effects of a historic economic downturn, UW chancellors continue to make tough choices to find ever greater efficiencies. This is while also focusing on educational programs and research efforts that will fuel economic recovery. Looking at the bigger picture, Regents should consider, first, the value students derive from a high-quality college experience, and second, whether our colleges and universities have the resources they need to deliver a first-class education that prepares students for success in work and life. Also critically important are the broader benefits that all Wisconsin derives from having an educated citizenry and workforce. And for that, we want to ensure UW system institutions retain a robust capacity to serve as intellectual and economic engines for the state, producing students with ideas and skills to move this state forward. We must examine the annual budget to also ensure that we are pursuing every opportunity to stretch dollars further and to serve our students better. With this context, I would like to turn this over to President Cross. President Cross?
Thank you, Regent President Milner. Let me begin today by sharing 5 main takeaways that tell the story of this next annual budget. I'll be brief, but we will test you afterwards. There was supposed to be laughter after that, but first, fund balances continue to steadily decrease and are down another $75 million this year. Second, the tuition balance has now decreased by the tuition fund balance has now decreased by nearly 50% since 2012-2013. And we estimate by the end of the next fiscal year, that is the budget we're considering now, the balance will have decreased by 67% in that fund. Third, balances will be significantly lower still once the DOA releases previously approved capital projects that we have funds in our fund balances waiting to support. Those funds are accumulating dollars, significant number of dollars waiting to start. Fourth, this snapshot today is provided at a time when the overall actual GPR support of the UW system, including debt service, is lower than it was in 2007 and 2008. Actual numbers. That is despite the fact that during that time our overall student enrollment is currently 7,000 students greater than it was at the start of that academic year almost a decade ago. And fifth, my final point, adjusting for inflation, GPR support for the UW system is the lowest it has ever been in the history of the UW system. That is a fact recently shared in the press through some independent analysis that I'm certain many of you saw. So, with those 5 points in mind, I ask that you keep them in mind as you look at this. I'm here to introduce Julie Gordon, who is the Interim Vice President of Finance, to share the annual budget proposal. And she will highlight other major components of our proposed annual budget, and we'll open the floor for questions and comments. Julie?
Thank you, President Cross. So in front of you today is a resolution to approve the UW System's 2016-2017 operating budget. That includes the rates for academic tuition, our segregated fees, room and board, and our estimated expenditures from fund balances. Within the resolution, you'll see a format that we're hoping is familiar, easy to understand, and intuitive. It reflects a checkbook-like format. Each of the major unrestricted funds, for each of those, we provide the beginning balance of the fund. We then show the revenues, less the expenditures, to calculate the amount by which our fund balance will decrease this fiscal year. We then show the ending balance for each unrestricted fund that is projected to be at the end of the year. We'll now walk through the operating budget at a high level and break it down into a little bit greater detail for some of the individual funds. So what is the total UW system fiscal year 2017 operating budget if you look across all funds and all activities? A summary of the 17 budget can be found at the top of your resolution. If you have a hard copy, it's that goldenrod color sheet of paper. In the top box, it's a shaded box at the very top. In total, the UW system anticipates receiving revenue of $6.07 billion in fiscal year 17. Expenditures of $6.23 billion are planned. Compared to fiscal year 16, this budget represents an increase in expenditures of $37 million. Again, that's across all funds. And that is an increase of 0.6%. The expenditures projected to exceed revenues, as I said, so therefore we are budgeting for an overall reduction of our program revenue balances across all funding sources of $160 million. Now let's dig a little bit deeper beyond just that surface level to get into the different types of activities that the UW has within its operations. And those different activities are reflected in the boxes below that top shaded one within the resolution. The UW system's academic mission is funded with tuition and state general purpose revenue, or what we call GPR. In fiscal year 17, the UW system budget includes tuition revenue of nearly $1.43 billion. The state has budgeted GPR of $1.048 billion for the UW system. However, as you'll see a couple lines below the GPR line, you'll see something titled GPR lapse. In accordance with the state budget, we need to lapse or give back to the state $25 million, reducing the total GPR that we will receive. UW expenditures of $2.56 billion, being greater than total revenues, will require that we use our tuition balances of approximately $107 million, reducing our tuition balances overall for that fiscal year by that amount. As noted on the slide here and as previously mentioned by President Cross, that would be a reduction from our fiscal year 13 balances of 67%. As I said, the UW system budget initially includes GPR of $1.048 billion. How has that amount in fiscal year 17, how is that amount going to change? So looking at the past few years, if we went back to the 2015 budget, you would see that the UW system's GPR was approximately $1.178 billion. That's $125 million more than what we had in fiscal year 16. The UW system was required to take a $125 million cut in fiscal year 16, as we all know. Institutions have been managing that cut and implementing strategies to absorb it this year. That reduction is effectively in place for next year as well, in fiscal year 17. In addition, due to a few changes in GPR funds that we receive for debt service and fringe benefits, GPR will be further reduced by approximately $6 million in fiscal year 17. That brings us down in total to the $1,048,000,000 that I mentioned earlier. So how has GPR changed historically, looking back more than just a few years, if we go back longer than that? As President Cross highlighted during his opening comments, state support for the UW system was at an all-time low in fiscal year 2006 when adjusted for inflation. The highest adjusted level of state support was in the first year of the UW system, 1973-74. If GPR decreased significantly in fiscal year 16, and we're anticipating an additional lesser reduction in fiscal year 17, what is anticipated on the tuition side of that equation? Some UW institutions are anticipating enrollment declines and therefore further reductions in tuition revenue. However, overall, total tuition revenue is anticipated to increase by nearly $37 million in 2017. So how does that happen? As you know, a statutory provision continues a tuition freeze at the 2013 levels for most resident undergraduate students in the UW system. The new tuition revenue will be generated by increases, primarily generated by increases in non-resident and graduate tuition, which are not part of that freeze. The Board of Regents has previously approved non-resident and graduate tuition increases for the 16-17 academic year. UW-Madison increases were approved in April of 15 as part of a 2-year phased-in approach. The board also approved non-resident and graduate tuition increases at UW-La Crosse, Milwaukee, Platteville, Stout, and Whitewater in April of this year. No additional tuition changes are being requested in this budget other than those that have been previously approved. And you can see each of those tuition rates in Section C of the budget document that you have by institution, by program. Again, those all reflect the tuition rates previously approved. So I'll shift now to the auxiliary side of our operations, which include various self-supporting operations at each of our institutions, such as our residence halls, our food service, athletic recreational sports facilities, and our unions. As you can see on the slide in front of you, the UW system anticipates auxiliary revenues of nearly $720 million and expenditures of $747 million. This would be an increase in our overall auxiliary expenditures of 0.4% over the prior year. With expenditures exceeding revenues by nearly $28 million, the auxiliary balance is expected to decrease by that amount by the end of fiscal year 17. So under this budget, how would fees and room and board rates change for our students in the next academic year? Segregated fees and the requested increases will vary from campus to campus. Really, they reflect the level of services they provide, that the campuses provide to the students, and the type and the condition of the facilities that they operate. On average, segregated fees at our 4-year institutions will increase $59 per year under this proposal. That is less than $30 per semester. These fee increases are often necessary to address capital projects that are underway and the associated debt that may come along with those capital projects. In fact, 70% of the average fee increase that we're requesting today, or more than $41 of that $59 increase, is due to capital projects. These capital projects were presented to the board with the anticipated segregated fees and the increases to them included for information only at the time that the project was brought forward. At that time, Regents were asked to vote on the projects and approve those capital projects, but they were not asked to vote or approve the associated segregated fees. That is the request at this time as part of our annual budget process. The segregated fee increases are often phased in to smooth the rates to students and families and yet provide the necessary funds that our institutions need when debt service payments come due. For example, UW-La Crosse is requesting an increase in segregated fees of $259. Of that amount, $230 is due to a student center, which was approved by the board in August of 2012. This is the last of a phased-in approach for those segregated fees for the related debt service. On top of that $230, an additional $20 of that $259 is for the field house construction at that campus, which was approved by the board in November of 2014. This is the second increase of $20 for that project. That leaves a remaining $9 for increases in operational costs such as staffing. Segregated fee increases may also be put towards student-initiated projects or requests. For example, UW-Madison is requesting a segregated fee increase of $72. Of that amount, $59 was unanimously supported by the Associated Students of Madison, ASM. This funding would expand mental health counseling and sexual assault prevention activities within that institution. For each of the institutions, if you look in the materials that you have, you can see that we've broken out this component of capital versus operating within the graph that you have and the information that you have. But I should note that these increases are not requested lightly or by the institutions or brought forward lightly to you today. Changes have recently been made in the segregated fee process. Reporting thresholds have been removed that previously limited the justifications that were provided to the board. And now the supporting tables related to segregated fees provide detailed item-by-item accounts as to what the increases are for. Those tables also reflect at almost every institution in the UW system where expenditures have been reduced. Expenditures have been reduced in other areas to mitigate these increases, or in the case of one of our institutions, to reduce the segregated fee altogether. The room and board rates are also included within auxiliary operations, but apply to a much smaller subset of our students, with nearly 39,000 students having room contracts and 41,000 purchasing meal plans. The requested room and board rates at the four-year institutions would increase an average of 1.7%, which is approximately equal to the rate of inflation. There are additional fund types covered on your front page of your resolution. I'll highlight them just briefly here. These are the funds that typically are not as directly impactful to our students. They benefit our campuses and the student experience, but not as directly with the fees and rates charged to our students. General program operations include various activities that support our academic mission, such as our copy centers, publication sales, a survey center, the fund titled Gift Grants and Contracts that captures our direct revenues and expenditures from research and development activity, and also generates an overhead component as well. The expenditures associated with these activities are expected to increase, and since these revenues, as I mentioned earlier, are often generated from the general public, from the federal government, and from private industry, their operations support not only the campus infrastructure, but benefit Wisconsin's economy as well. And lastly, there is an other fund that includes largely pass-through funds such as financial aid and State Lab of Hygiene, the Veterinary Diagnostic Lab, things along that line. So with program revenue balances continuing to receive significant attention and the UW system's need to prudently monitor them and be aware of them, what do we project balances to be at the end of fiscal year 17, the budget that you are being asked to approve today? UW system institutions project their program revenue balances will continue to decline significantly. As I mentioned earlier, and as you will note on the proposed budget resolution, overall the total balance is expected to decline a little over $160 million. This is a reduction of 20.5% in fiscal year 17 alone. The largest portion of this reduction is expected to be within the tuition fund, which is estimated to decline $107 million, or 37.4% in this fiscal year. Again, as noted earlier, this would be an overall decline from our highest level in 2013 of 67%. Auxiliary balance is expected to decline as well, nearly $28 million, or 11%. General program operations is projected to decline $12.5 million, or almost 14%, and our federal indirect cost reimbursement is expected to be reduced $12.5 million as well, which is almost 8% of that balance. So this is a high-level overview of our fiscal year 16-17 operating budget, and we ask for your approval of this budget in Resolution 6, which is before you. So with that, I will turn it over to President Milner.
Are there questions from Ms. Gordon? Regent Whitburn.
On the subject of balances, in the financial report for the university, which was issued in February, we ended fiscal 15 with $833 million in unrestricted assets. 833. This fiscal year is going to end in 3 weeks. Best estimate of what we're going to have in total unrestricted assets in the next financial report.
That is difficult to estimate since we don't yet know all of our accruals, our payables, our receivables. I think something close to the $700 million would be as good of an estimate as we could come up with at this point.
Thank you. That's helpful. One of the things that I have continued to press that we spend more time with when we approve the operating budget, understanding that most of the dollars go to personnel and personnel-related expenditures, is at least a glancing focus on people that we have on the payroll. And so we have budgeted slots, turnover, vacancies. And so in the last several years, we've looked at onboard staff from time to time. And we looked at onboard staff. This is full-time, part-time people across the system, aside from students, on 4/30/16 as the semester came to a close, compared to a year ago, 4/30/15. And we're down substantially. Can you share with the board what that number was?
Don't have that number with me. David, do you want?
It would be, but I could probably go pull it off the computer somewhere.
Rita, do you have it?
From April to April, we were down about 1,100 staff.
1,100.
Yes.
We also have fewer people plugged into the state health plan in our life across the system.
Mm-hmm.
That was down 1,400?
No, I think we had, was it 4? Yeah, we'll dig that out for you. I don't think it was that many. I think in total, when we took the number that Frida gave, plus the additional ones that opted out of the healthcare, we were in total around 1,400 or 1,500.
Substantially down.
Yes.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Other questions? Regent Mueller?
Thank you. You can see how many yellow, some of you can see how many yellow sticky notes I have here.
I used to work for Jan, so I'm very well aware of how many yellow stickies you have.
I'm not going to ask those questions. I do want to share, though, I've spent a lot of time with these numbers, share a few of my takeaways. And working almost exclusively from what you, Julie, call this goldenrod sheet, the resolution. We can't understand where we're going unless we best understand where we've been. And for that all-important GPR tuition fund category, the estimated beginning balance of $287 million is higher than what we thought when we put the budget together last year. And that's good for this year because we can help reduce that amount even more and pay for our needed expenses. But I just wanted to point that out. Budgeting is an imperfect science, and we made our best guess, and obviously we were high in some areas and low in others. Is that correct?
Yes. So we had anticipated that our tuition fund, which again, as you pointed out, is projected to end the year at 287. We had originally projected that it would be approximately 205 million. And as you noted, this is a difficult thing to do in projecting, especially when there are so many variables and how many students will arrive and how we manage a cut that was really of an unprecedented size. I would also add that there are a number of factors in this area that are outside of the UW system's control, outside of the institution's control, that we often need to react to. So a portion of that, for example, would be utilities and some savings that we've recognized this year due to a warmer than usual winter and lower than usual utility prices. Also, as Regent Whitburn mentioned earlier, fringe benefits as part of the state, as a state agency. We received a new benefit plan and new benefit programs as of January 1. So that brought about some changes as well in how many staff, faculty opted out of our health care plan. Those are just a few examples of those things that are outside of our control.
The takeaway that I have relates to that general program operations category where we're spending almost $288 million. I confess I still don't understand that very well because some of it reflects costs that our units, our institutions we're paying each other. We're providing services to one another. And so there'll be an expenditure for a campus for printing, as you say, but the revenue would show up here. And I guess my takeaway is just, as Chair of Business and Finance, I hope this is something we can look at a little bit more. I don't fully understand this category. It has been growing over time, correct?
Right. So I think it's more than just internal transactions, though. As I said, a lot of it is sales to the public. We've used, I think the nice, clean, easy one for people to understand is Babcock Dairy at the Madison campus. It relates to our educational mission. It's not a direct component of it, but it is obviously related to it. Those sales obviously are to the public and other entities. A survey center that a number of our institutions may have in doing contractual work for the private sector as well could be another example. So there are many examples that go beyond just internal transactions. The balance is, the anticipated expenditures are projected to grow here by almost $12.5 million. The thing I would say about that is that these funds are fungible. We don't have restrictions on these funds. I think in many cases, not all, but in many cases, it's more of a campus culture of that unit being able to maintain their funds. Due to the times that we're in, institutions are beginning to look at using those funds to benefit that activity. So again, in the situation of a copy center, maybe purchasing a large, $100,000 printer if we're talking something like a press type of activity. But they can also use those funds to help other areas of their campus. And again, due to the times that we're in, more and more institutions are going that direction of pulling those funds to help with general campus costs that may be incurred.
Third and final takeaway, Madam President, is the importance of Table B2, which is page 22 on the white pages. I really like that table because that shows the breakout by campus of that all-important GPR tuition category. Mm-hmm. And it's not as if I want to highlight any particular number, but of all of the tables in here, to my colleagues, I think if you spent some time with that one, seeing how the money is being allocated across our institutions, it's just helpful.
Thank you. Regent Higgins?
Thank you, Regent Milner. Julie, I wanted to just to clarify in my own mind, after all these years, I'm still a little behind on this stuff. Our GPR tuition funds, made up of general purpose revenue from the state and tuition, are monies that really are directly used for instructional purposes. Auxiliary enterprises are things like the food plans, the dormitories, the recreational facilities, the student unions, and things like that. We've already had a discussion of general program operations. Federal indirect reimbursement is essentially an overhead amount that is associated with federal contracts that are won by our various campuses, and it's used for overhead for the laboratories and operations of the that are associated with the grants that we win. The gifts, grants, and contracts, of course, are monies that are very specifically, we win these to do very specific research. That money can't be moved anywhere. It's dedicated. The other area is pass-through dollars from the federal government and possibly from the state government to a large extent for student financial aid that come to the university essentially because students choose to attend one of our campuses. Is that money appropriately lumped together with GPR tuition funds and used as instructional dollars?
When it comes through from, and there, because of the issue that you're raising here, there is some double counting. We eliminate that when it comes to our financial statements, but within our budget, you will see some money coming in through other as financial aid, and then as it comes through the student's account from the student onto our books as tuition, it will appear there as well.
Any idea what proportion that might be? Are we talking, a complete overlap, or?
Do you have that number?
We do not have the complete breakdown of what the overlap is, because when you get the financial aid, it can be used for either paying your tuition or for your living expenses and other things. So there isn't a real way for us to be able to break down what that exact overlap is. But as you were saying, when you're looking at the other funds and thinking about the financial aid and other things, because of the overlap that you will find there, or the fact that those funds could be used to support other costs outside of instruction, it really doesn't, it's not appropriate to add that to the GPR and tuition and say, this gives us additional resources within the university.
Thank you.
Julie, I believe that the state hygiene lab is in that other category.
It is, State Lab of Hygiene, the vet diagnostic labs, a few other things along that line. So if your question is also how much of the $1.26 billion is exactly financial aid, we can get that broken out for you.
Other questions? Yes.
I'm looking on page 11, and it looks at June 30th, 2017. We estimate that the cash balances, at least in the unrestricted area, will be at $478,127. And I'm just curious how many days cash on hand that is and what other peer group public institutions maintain.
So I haven't done the calculation on that number exactly. I can tell you the last time I did the calculation, we had, which is 6 months ago, we had about 8 weeks worth of cash available. That's significantly below the one benchmark that I'm aware of, which is 40% by the National Association of College and University Business Officers. That 40%, though, has not been able to get a lot of traction because that includes private institutions and others that have to maintain their own debt and meet bond covenants because of that. So I think the necessary amount, as we've looked at it and trying to look at why we would want to have reserves and what the purpose of those reserves would be for things such as addressing enrollment declines would be one. looking at the fiscal year ending at the end of June and needing to carry us over until the next peak in revenues come in, which is typically in September as the students come back for the fall semester, and just having working capital to manage through those summer months. We're looking more in the range of 12 to 15%. That's something that we've started to share, and we have shared it with our chief business officers and chancellors and others.
Style.
You noted that some of the segregated fees, the increases are supported by the students. What is the breakdown as we look at this $59 average across the board?
That was something that we looked at doing a little bit later in the budget process, and it's really difficult to define because we don't have a standard definition of what does student-supported mean in terms of referendums or just a request. So we don't have that information broken down that way. We tried to identify it where it was applicable within the table, section D of your packet, where there were specific student-initiated or student-requested changes to simply identify where they were. That will have a different definition depending on the campus and their process. It may involve an actual student referendum. It may be more of a request from the students, but I don't have an exact amount.
So some are referendum, some are student government
Yes.
approval, some are maybe another system,
Right.
all based on campus,
And so
campus basis.
with 70% being for capital, the remaining 30% would be for some student-initiated referendum, whatever that might include, and campus necessary changes that were determined by the administration itself.
So that 70% that's a capital improvement, that's stemming directly from previous approvals by the boards for capital expenditures.
Exactly.
So it's been approved, and now we're finally seeing that come in, because that fee has not been approved, but the actual expenditure of the money was previously approved at a prior meeting.
Right, that's exactly it.
Other questions? Well, before we go on to the motion, I want to thank you, Ms. Gordon, and I want to thank you, Ms. Harris. Do you have, just by way of information, you and your team have spent a lot of time briefing all the regents about the contents of this budget. So we very much appreciate the work that you've done, both with the budget and also preparing us and letting us know what's involved.
Thank you, and I pass that on to the campuses. They've done a tremendous amount of work pulling all this together, so thank you to all the campus staff, chief business officers, and budget officers who work on this.
All right, and that's a ditto for us as well. Now, we're going to move into the motion. Oh, we have two questions? Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to
Farrell?
more or less agree with and reinforce what you just said. We're all sitting here quietly, but it's because we had such a great chance to have at it through the meetings, all of which were about an hour long at least on the phone with several of us with the staff. And without that, you would have had another 5 hours here today. And I just think it's terrific because we were able to ask maybe the stupid questions we didn't want to ask in this setting. So I appreciate very much the time that was given to
that. Regent Delgado.
I just wanted to perhaps add to what was said, and is that the way this information has come to us, particularly with the initial table, was extremely helpful. I told you on the phone, and I would like to say it publicly, I would say that I have been here 2 years, and I remember complaining bitterly to Ray about the 2-page budget I received the first time. And I said, next time this happens, I'm voting no. Okay, but I had to tell you that the way you have broken it down has made it, and the discussion, of course, have made it far more rational and give us some comfort that at least we can put our arms around the salient points of what is happening here and that this thing is moving in the right direction. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And at the risk of being redundant, this has been a real chore that that system administration and the campuses have engaged in over the past 3 years. This is a complicated process. It's a complicated institution. And I want to thank everyone who's been involved in it because we've made great strides in the last 3 years. So thank you very much. Now, I'd entertain a motion to approve Resolution 6, approval of the 2016-2017 operating budget. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. Is there any more discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much, and thank you very much again for the presentation. All right, our next item for discussion and action is the board's recommendation for the Wisconsin Grant UW program funding in the upcoming budget cycle. Our vote is advisory. This is the Higher Education Aids Board, which administers this program and will submit its own budget request to the state for consideration by DOA and the governor. Because the UW must submit its recommendation in time for the Higher Education Aids Board to develop its 2017-2019 budget proposal, the Board of Regents considers this issue now at our June meeting. This is prior to acting on the UW budget request for 2017-2019, which we'll submit at our next meeting on August 18th and 19th. HEAB will act on our request and its full budget at its meeting on June 29th. For background, I'd like to give you some big picture financial aid numbers. They tell a compelling story that frames the resolution we are asking you to approve. In the 2014 and 2015, 7 out of 10 UW system students overall received $1.4 billion in some form of financial aid. The Wisconsin Grant is the largest need-based state grant program available to Wisconsin students attending a UW institution. In fact, 1 of every 4 resident undergraduates, more than 32,000 students, receive a Wisconsin grant in 2014-2015 with an average grant of $1,773. In the UW system, affordability and access has long been cornerstones of our educational mission. Financial aid is a vital component of our standing by that commitment. At a time when there is legitimate concern about the rising level of student debt, what we're really talking about is not just the cost of student UW experience, but rather the net cost. The amount of state and federal support a student receives plays a significant part in keeping that net cost down. And it is incumbent on us to advocate for the support that's necessary for our students. Here to tell us more about our recommended financial aid and aid request to the Higher Education Board, we turn to Bob Skocic, Senior Policy Advisor for Financial Aid and Student Success at UW System, and Sue Mensloff, Associate Director of the Department of Financial Aid, Student Employment, and Military Education Benefit at UW-Milwaukee. Welcome, and I'll turn this over to you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for this opportunity to request approval for the UW System biennial budget request for the Wisconsin Grant. The Wisconsin Grant Program for the University of Wisconsin System is the state's largest financial aid program for students attending UW institutions. This program is administered, thank you, by the state's Higher Education Aids Board, as was explained. Our 2017-19 budget request for the UW-Wisconsin Grant Program is approved by the Board of Regents, then forwarded to HEAB in the agency's biennial budget request to the Department of Administration. State funding for the UW-Wisconsin Grant Program has remained at $58.3 million since 2010-11 and will remain at $58.3 million in the 2015-17 biennium. So funding for the Wisconsin Grant will not have increased for 6 years. However, since 2008-9, the number of students eligible for the UW-Wisconsin Grant Program has increased by 23%. In order to provide financial aid through the Wisconsin Grant to this growing population of eligible students, the UW system decreased the amount of awards in order to increase the number of awards. As shown in this table, the number of UW-Wisconsin grant recipients increased by 28% between 2009-10 and 2014-15 from 25,624 recipients to 32,885 recipients. But the average grant award decreased by 18% from 2,161 to 1,773. To return average grants to the 2009-10 level of 2,161 would require an increase of $6,384,100 in 2017-18 and an additional $6,384,100 in 2018-19, or a biennial increase of slightly more than $19 million. Okay, there we go. What has this decrease in average Wisconsin grants meant to UW students? During this time period of 2009-10 to 2014-15, UW average cost of attendance has increased from $17,015 in 2009-10 to $19,702 in 2014-15, an increase of 16%. The purchasing power of Wisconsin grants, or the percentage of the cost of attendance covered by the average Wisconsin grant, has dropped from 12.7% in 2009-10 to 9% in 2014-15. So who receives Wisconsin grants? For 2016-17, Wisconsin grants will provide awards to UW resident undergraduate students with expected family contributions of $4,500 or less. This equates to a family income of approximately $63,000 for a family of four. The maximum award in 2016-17 will be $2,384 with a minimum award of $584. For 2014-15, 48.8% of University of Wisconsin system recipients of Wisconsin grants had expected family contributions, or EFC, of 0, meaning the student's family is not expected to provide any support to the student attending college. 0 EFC students equate to a family income of $37,000 or less for a family of four. I want to hand off now to Sue Minslav, who will now discuss the impact of the Wisconsin grants of students at UW-Milwaukee.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you for giving us the opportunity today to share with you our message of how important the Wisconsin grant is to Wisconsin students and to our UWM students in particular. So this slide here just confirms Bob's earlier remarks about how the average award has gone down over the past 6 years. As we do with other financial aid programs that have a funding allocation, we will overcommit. So if we have $13 million to award to our students, we will perhaps award $15 million, realizing that many of them will apply for numerous colleges, so some will not actually enroll here, and then some may transfer out mid-year. This last year for 15-16 was the first year that we actually did not have a waiting list. Over the past number of years, depending on the number of applicants, we often began to waitlist our students as early as July. So being the UW with the highest number of Wisconsin grant recipients, as well as having quite a few students who will traditionally apply late, they're often left without this very important fund, and then having an even larger unmet need. In those cases, these students may be unable to afford to actually attend, or may begin classes in the fall and then run into problems coming up with those additional resources by the end of the semester, so may not be able to return for our spring semester. This is why it's so important that the UW financial aid directors made the decision to eliminate the wait lists, even at the cost of lower awards to students. So this slide here shows 3 different scenarios of what a financial aid package might look like for a freshman student. While the majority of financial aid programs are based on financial need, in addition, the federal Pell Grant and the Wisconsin grant are actually tied to an exact formula, so the exact dollar amount that a student is eligible for is really predetermined for us. Looking at these scenarios here, we have a student who would be our neediest student, so that with the zero expected family contribution, or EFC. The middle one is has a $3,500 EFC, and the third one has a $10,000 EFC. As you can see, all three students are offered the exact same amount in federal work study and federal loans. Really, the only difference is in their grant eligibility. The zero EFC student is offered just under $9,200 in grants. The student number 2 is offered $3,349, and the final one receives no grant funding at all. All scenarios still end up, though, with some unmet need, regardless of their eligibility. Also, because the federal campus-based funds, those are the supplemental grant, the Perkins loan, and the work study, those funds are limited. So most often, after we've awarded a few thousand students on our campus, we will be completely out of those funds. And as of right now, the federal Perkins loan program is still slated to be eliminated September 30th of 2017. Finally, while this slide indicates freshman scenarios, really the only difference would be that upperclassmen can get a little bit more through the federal direct loan program. Finally, here is just 2 testimonials, thank yous from our out of our 7,000 Wisconsin grant recipients who benefit from this program. UWM has the neediest student population in the state, with more than half of our Wisconsin recipients receiving the maximum award. So most of those students really are, at least half of our recipients have a zero EFC. Without this program, I'm sure they would not be able to attend here and actually go for a 4-year education, which is our hope for all of them. So your continued support of the Wisconsin Grant Program is sincerely appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Jokic. Thank you, Sue. Are there questions? Yes. Regent Tyler.
Bob, do you know how long it's been since any realignment or adjustment has been made on these grants between WACU and the tech colleges and the university system?
Any realignment?
In terms of, so just as an example, the average award at WACU is about $2,500. The average award at the UW system is just under $1,800. Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said something. The average award at WTCS is about $800. If we look at, and I'm not positive what year this was, I think we had about 1,600 students that were eligible for an award in the UW system that didn't get one. We had tens of thousands that were eligible at the WTCS that didn't get one. I can't get the information out of WACU. I haven't received it. My guess is they probably, or eligible people probably get them. So I guess I'm just questioning, is there an appropriate dialogue here about, you know, the allocation of money? So.
Do you want to speak to that?
Yes, I would if I could get this thing to go back. You know, I would just point out, certainly, when you look at this table, you can see the unmet need for the students who are attending UW institutions. And I guess I would just provide a little history on this, seeing as how I've been at system administration a long time. If you do go back about 10 or 12 years, certainly, when there was a large increase in the tuition, it was accompanied by a large increase in the Wisconsin grant at that time. So, you know, there is a lot of history for why they are where we're at right now. I can't speak certainly to why the Wisconsin grant for the technical college is at the low level and you have the wait list that you do.
I can certainly understand that the tuition is less, you know, it's probably half, so does that make sense that there's probably an argument there? I guess the question I've got is the private nonprofits are able to award 50% more, and is that, you know, is that good policy? And I realize we probably don't make that policy, but, you know, maybe my question is that good policy? And has this board got the courage to take a stand on it?
You think it is?
No, I don't think it's good policy. I think it's not fair. You know, I think if there was a transfer of some of those dollars now, I mean, there's a bigger issue with the technical colleges because we have tens of thousands that are eligible that don't get an award. We have tens of thousands that get an award. We have tens of thousands that are eligible that don't get one. But because I go to a Waco institution, should I be eligible for $2,500 where we're only eligible for $18 here because that's what the money is allowing? That's my question.
And Frida was pointing out, she just came by and noted that there was a HEAB study some time ago that did look at all the existing programs and future directions for the program. So, but they did not make a recommendation in that area, certainly. And as we talked about, certainly, as far as wait lists, we made a conscious decision to decrease the wait list and decrease the amount of awards in order to increase the number of awards, and we went from 25,000 to 32,000. It was a very tough decision because obviously that meant reducing the amount of financial aid, the amount of grants we could provide.
Yeah, and in the same context, if we looked at that at the technical colleges, we'd be cutting the awards in more than half, which, you know, at that point, does it make sense to do the award? It probably doesn't provide enough help to encourage the student to stay. So I just put the question on the table.
That's a good question. I briefly served on the HEAB board, and I know the struggles that they have, and I know there hasn't been an adjustment in a long time. So it's a good question, and it's something that we should consider. Bob and Sue, thank you very much. Any other questions?
Regina?
Yes, Mr. Higgins.
So I'm going to nitpick a little bit here because on table B3 in our budget amounts, which is consolidated schedule of tuition, segregated fees, and room and board only. Okay, it shows the average cost to attend for freshman year as basically $18,600 for UW-Milwaukee. So obviously you have things like books and transportation miscellaneous. What does make up that additional $4,000 or $5,000?
So there are 5 components that go into the estimated cost of attendance, and they are estimates. Basically, we have an amount for our undergrads living with your parents or living away from your parents. So the amount we use also is an average of residential housing, which with the various res halls that we have on campus, those amounts can vary. But what is allowed is tuition fees, room and board, books and supplies, miscellaneous living expenses, and transportation. And we have worked on actually, reducing that, should I say, over the past years ago. Students seem to be a little bit more frugal, where now if the cost of attendance is higher, sometimes they want to borrow loans for every penny that we include in that. So we have worked at reducing that.
Regent Whitburn?
I think, frankly, this is an overdue and prudent enhancement of state support of our students. I think it should be a priority in the upcoming budget process. I would hope that the governor and our legislative leaders would view it as a priority, and I'm happy to move the resolution.
Very good. Is there a second? Second. Any more discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, and thank you very much. I think this is a good move. All right, now we turn our attention to information technology security in the UW system, an issue that demands our attention as a board, particularly given the rise in external threats, the complex regulatory environment, recommendations from internal audit and the Legislative Audit Bureau, and finally, the associated financial and reputational risk. Although a statewide Technology and Informational Security Council, TISC, was formed in 2011, the UW system has relied primarily on institutional level security policies and procedures. Efforts began in 2015 to augment each institution's work by developing a system-wide IT security program. You may recall we had a brief introduction to the IT security program in the Business and Finance meeting at our February meeting. Subsequently, the board adopted Regent Policy 25-5, Information Technology, Informational Security, which describes the process by which IT security will be comprehensively managed across the system. Today we'll get an update on the ongoing efforts. For that, we turn to David Miller, Vice President for Administration, and David will introduce his fellow presenters. David?
Thank you, Regent Milner. Just as the amount of easy access to information technology devices and programs is growing rapidly, so are the threats to information security. What used to be threats by individual hackers have been replaced by sophisticated foreign governments and organized crime rings posing cyber threats even to higher education institutions. Businesses are making significant investments in protecting information, and universities must as well. The breach of intellectual property, sensitive research, or personal information would cost universities both significant dollars and reputation. While large data-rich companies have been the primary target, pardon the pun, of cyber criminals, higher education is particularly vulnerable because we are decentralized and open environments. Vulnerability to cyber breaches is increased through human behavior. Policies that define and incentivize the best protections of data can be very helpful and range from low cost, such as strong password protections, multi-factor authentication, and encrypted thumb drives, to expensive ones, such as high security data centers. In a highly decentralized IT environment, such as that we have, providing and requiring the use of proven antivirus software is particularly effective. Educating users is critical. The proliferation of devices on which employees mix professional and private use requires a keen awareness of potential threats to networks. Attackers can easily gain access to a vast network when a user responds to a phishing lure on social media or email. The primitive phishing scams have been replaced by highly sophisticated spear phishing attempts that appear completely legitimate to the user. Like businesses, we are constantly competing for staff with up-to-date skills, not only in IT systems, but in new and evolving areas such as cyber forensic, that is, detecting threats that traditional security tools do not pick up. We are taking steps to set policies that control access to computer networks and safeguard the flow of information. The UW system is committed to protecting the information that is critical to support teaching, research, business operations, and our educational communities. Cybersecurity is not only an administrative and IT community responsibility, but everyone has a responsibility for the proper handling and protection of confidential information. The enhanced policies we are developing will apply to the entire UW system, including faculty, staff, and students. Each policy is supported by requirements that direct what must be done to be in compliance. So joining me today are our top four IT experts, and they're going to take 1 or 2 minutes. I know this looks like a lot. 1 or 2 minutes to tell you exactly what they're working on right now, what will be coming back before you, and then we'll take your questions. So I'm going to start with David Stack, the CIO of UW System Administration. Then we'll introduce Mohammed El-Hindi, the CIO at UW-La Crosse and chair of our UW Information Assurance Council, Nick Davis, the UW System Chief Information Security Officer, and Bob Turner, the UW-Madison Chief Information Security Officer. David?
Yes. Thank you, David. Yes, David and Region President Milner covered, I think, the basic waterfront very well. I guess I would just add in addition that we have beefing up staffing across the UW system In the area of information security, within the last year and a half, new information security officers have been hired at System Administration and at UW-Madison and here at UW-Milwaukee. We do have a set of tools that is funded centrally and distributed to the UW system institutions. The work we're doing now is going to be reviewed in July by a consultant we're bringing in from the Gartner organization. We're midway through a first year of our cyber liability insurance, and we believe that the work we're doing now will put us in a better posture when it comes to renewal. And we do have robust controls in place on our central institutional systems, and in particular on our ERP systems, our enterprise systems that serve the entire UW system.
Thank you, David. I'm going to focus on the Information Assurance Council and what we've been working on right now. So first of all, the council is made up of campus information technology officers, chief security officers, auditor, legal, human resource, and data governing expert. So we have a well-rounded group that's focused on improving information security through all the system and the institution of the system, and develop consistent and appropriate policy, create standard-based information security control, and improve the auditability of our information security. Also create a high-level conformity and uniformity within our institutions. So as you see, the overall goal here is build a very solid information security program for the system and the institutions. To do that, it's a huge project. So what we did, we divide that into 3 phases. Phase 1, and that's the phase we are working on right now, is to develop framework, program, and 5 high-level policies. So, and at the end of phase 1, the part of phase 1 is the implementation of those 5 policies and the program. Nick will talk more about the policies when we get to that section. So phase 2 of our project is to review the success of phase 1, because phase 1 includes an implementation part. So we will be looking at how successful we are in the implementation. We're going to assess the financial and the cost needed in terms of resources. As you hear, one of the earlier speakers talked about talent, and that's one of the challenges we have in our information security, actually retain the talent within our departments and our system. So and phase 3 will be how to operationalize and make security an everyday thing. We don't want it to be an afterthought. So security should be part of what we do every day, and that's our aim. With that, I'm going to have Nick talk a little bit about the 5 policies and the procedures we're creating.
Thank you, Mohammed. The UW Information Assurance Council established a sub-team of policy people to go ahead and prioritize the areas that we wanted to work on first when it came to policies. Based on some NIST standards, federal government standards, as well as our areas of expertise and professional experience, we created a list of prioritization of approximately 19 different policies. And we decided to move forward with those in terms of which we're going to have the greatest impact most immediately. We began by developing policies for password management and for security awareness training across UW system, and those policies right now are in the final phases of review, and we expect to have them completed very shortly and ready for implementation. Furthermore, we went on to develop a data classification policy, which is tangentially related to a lot of the other policies we will be developing. In addition to the data classification policy, we also have an incident response policy and a security operations policy. Those last 2 policies have just undergone the first round of review, but we do expect to have all 5 policies ready for President Cross's signature and ready for the campuses to begin implementing by the end of August. I think that pretty much covers the policy work. We will move on to Bob Turner now, who will talk about information security in higher education.
I'd like to address some of the challenges that we face in higher education that are not necessarily found in some of the other industries you may have exposure to. We receive over 17,000 probes daily, and those are usually machine-driven with hostile intent. We need to have the right type of machinery to answer the machine-driven probes. So one of our challenges is getting the right tools on board. Nation states are well funded. They're targeting higher education because of the value of the intellectual property that we have, as well as the commercially marketable information we have. UW-Madison alone, 43,000 students, 20,000 staff, 56,000 endpoints, all available to harvest information from. The cost of operations is a function of the speed of your backbone plus the value of your intellectual property and information. At Madison, we have a 100 gigabit backbone. That means data moves fast. Identifying data that's based on the diversity of our projects and subjects that are taught at the university is very difficult because of the sheer volumes of data and the magnitude of our data centers and distribution of our data centers. We all have the same common vulnerabilities within the UW system. We all have HR data, student information. We also share open business processes that are easily exploitable if you have a clever adversary like we do. We have the added issues of compliance with FERPA, and in some of our institutions, compliance with HIPAA. FERPA is obviously the federal education information guidance for protecting student data, and HIPAA protects the volumes of healthcare information that are housed on some of our campuses. We also have an open and collaborative environment. We thrive on access. We thrive on the researchers being able to share data and information from their research projects with others across campus and around the world. That means our society is opened. We're a collaborative society. We're a chatty group. It's important to understand that it's those diverse issues that make it a little more difficult in higher education to come together and protect the information and protect the networks. Availability is my largest concern as a major R1 university CISO. Next is the integrity of the information, meaning that the researchers have the ability to sustain their research because their information hasn't been changed or altered. And then, of course, there's the confidentiality of the information, which is the student and personnel data. We do have another challenge that's important, and that's the availability of the right staff. In higher education, we are competing with the marketplace. The marketplace, which even in areas such as Madison, there's a great diversity between the higher education cybersecurity staff and the commercial cybersecurity staff. Take that nationwide, and higher education is far behind in compensation, education, and continuing training for our staff. We also have a skill set disparity. We have a lot of very good people. I will put my team up against any other team and tell you they're the best in the business, but we lack specific skills. So for example, a lot of our research projects are coming in with requirements under the Federal Information Systems Management Act for security surveys and security assessments. That's not a skill that grows overnight. It takes somewhere between 4 and 7 years to mint a good cybersecurity professional. That's in any of the different domains within the trade. But it takes a little bit longer to gain that person who can go back and assess the security sufficiency of the information systems, especially ours in higher education. It's a challenge, but it's not one that we're not up to trying to charge at. Like I said, I've got the best in the business. And it's one that we can meet, especially with the folks at this table and the options of the information they've presented you today.
All right. Before we get to questions, just a comment. Most of us sit on boards of hospital boards or utility boards or something, and we're familiar with these challenges because this is something that's happened. This is a very good thing for us to have a chance to listen to each one of you, because for one, what you said at the very end about the uniqueness of the openness of higher education is something that I hadn't thought of. I thought I had thought of all the problems that might happen from other parts of life, and I'm sure the rest of us have. But considering that openness that makes it very hard to protect, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Other questions? Do we have questions from the board? Yes, Regent I almost called you Regent Falbo. Regent Farrell.
Wow, that's scary. For a sec. I guess, curiosity, where are these domestic hack attempts, or do you know if there's foreign, such as China?
We get probes from everywhere, ma'am, yes.
I have the same experience as Regina with
Yes.
the company I'm on the board of, and I know how active they are out there over the seas.
A simple log-on example is where a student logs on in the Madison campus, and then a very short period of time later, they're logging on from Kazakhstan and possibly from Nigeria. I don't know anybody who can travel that fast.
Other questions? Regent Delgado?
I have a question. I'm not aware of any significant breach that at least has gone out public. Are you willing to tell us about anything that happened in the last 5 years? Have we had any major break-ins in our system? Are you willing to talk? If you're not willing to talk about it, forget it. Tell me to shut up.
No, because I would like to answer that in open session. No, we have not. There have been minor exposures, but absolutely nothing that anyone in this room would call major. David, is that accurate?
Deserves a hand. I think you deserve applause, a whole bunch of you for doing that.
Of course, there's no guarantee that it will not happen within 15 minutes.
That's right.
No. Thank you for adding that part. That's an important part to add.
Greeby.
So good.
Regent Greeby?
Talked about 3 phases of this project. Do you have a timeline for when you expect to get through the 3rd phase?
We hope we accomplish phase 1 by end of the summer before school start, and hope we could do that. And phase 2 will be an assessment phase that will go during school years. So as you implement phase 2, will be an assessment of phase 1, so it will happen during the school year. So we hope a year from now or so, we will be in the operational mode more than anything else.
You also discussed cyber security insurance. Is that just system-wide, or does that cover what goes on at each campus as well? How robust is that insurance, I guess, is my question.
System-wide, and it does cover the campuses as well.
Mm-hmm. It's not terribly comprehensive. I mean, it's broad, but no insurance company will write you a policy to cover a macro event. The caps are in the $5 million range, cumulative for a year.
Understand.
Right, good. I think we're going to right now, thank you very much. We very much appreciate this report, and you know we're going to continue this in closed session. Now, moving forward in this busy day, and I would remind our new regents that please come to these meetings well-rested, because they can be rigorous. We now move we vote to move into closed session. After closed session, we'll reconvene in the Wisconsin Room Lounge for an initial presentation of strategic planning recommendations and a small group discussion among regents regarding those recommendations. Vice President Bailing?
I move that the Board of Regents move it into closed session to consider information security audit findings and responses as required by 19.85(1)(e), and to consider personal histories related to the naming of a facility at UW-Whitewater as permitted by 1985(1)(f), and to consider personal evaluations as permitted by 1985(1)(c).